Edase karuna kori. Navatakura Noyara Sagara Edase karuna kori. Diapada Chaya Shotohe Amaya Tomara Charana Thori. Diapada Chaya Shotohe Amaya Tomara Charana Thori. Chaya Behadomi, Chaya Dosha Shoti, Chaya Guna Dehodase. Ya Vegadomi, Chaya Dosha Shoti, Chaya Dehodase. Shaya satsanga deho he amare bose chi sangera she. Shaya satsanga deho he amare bose chi sangera she. Ekaki amara nahi paya bala Harinama Sankirtane. Ekaki amara nahi paya bala Harinama Sankirtane. Tumi kripa kori Shraddha bindu diya Deho Krishna namadane. Mi kripa kori Shraddha bindu diya Deho Krishna namadane. Krishna se tomara Krishna jite paro Tomara chahati aje. Krishna se tomara Krishna jite paro Tomara shakati aje. Amito Kangala Krishna Krishna boli Haitava pache pache. Amito Kangala Krishna Krishna boli Haitava pache pache. Oh he Vaishnava Thakura Doyara Sagara Edase Karuna Kori. Oh he Vaishnava Thakura Doyara Sagara Edase Karuna Kori. Diapada Chaya Shodho he amaya Tomara Charana Thori. Diapada Chaya Shodho he amaya Tomara Charana Thori. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Maya Purushachi, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much to Ananda Mataji. So, I would like to welcome all of you to the program dedicated to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, on his disappearance day anniversary. So we have this very interesting session that I'm looking forward to. It's called Care Personified, and it is excerpts from Srila Prabhupada's memories by his disciples, from some of his books and other kind of accounts remembering Srila Prabhupada. And it's actually 100 pages, and so I will share this book to everyone, to our communications channels. So devotees, we encourage devotees to take their time to read through these beautiful accounts and remembrances of Srila Prabhupada. But we selected a few kind of super nectar ones to share with you today. We have a printout, so we'll be passing out the printout to all the devotees here to read. And if anybody has got a reflection or thought or anything they would like to share, then please do. And otherwise, we just go to the next one. And then we'll go to the bhajan, and we'll have a second part of this as well. And the significance of this, of course, we are familiar to some extent, or going deeper with Srila Prabhupada's teachings, but also getting to know him as a person and how he dealt and interacted with devotees and his kindness and so many other qualities that he has manifested. It's very significant and important for us to do that, and how he actually truly cared and still cares for us. We can have this personal loving relationship with him. Is caring for us now. So to deepen that relationship and know how kind and caring he was and is, helps us to establish that connection and deepen that connection. So I'd like to ask now Panchatattva to start. And it's basically, there is about 14 or 15 different themes that describe Srila Prabhupada. And we kind of picked up like a one or two from each theme, illustrating kind of the mood. So this one, the first one that we're going to look at, is called From Heart to Heart, isn't it? From Heart to Heart, serving, giving, and appreciating. And this is Prabhupada's qualities from that point of view. So we'd like to ask P. Prabhu to start the ball rolling. Which page is it? So we'll have actually on the screen as well to make it easier. I don't know if it is visible. So whatever the devotees are reading, you will see also on the screen.
Hare Krishna. This one is called Gifts for Everyone by Yamunidasi. The very, very first clothing or decoration that was given to Lord Jagannath was, of course, given by Srila Prabhupada. And that wasn't in June of 1968, but that was in December of 1967, when Srila Prabhupada returned from India after recuperation from his heart attack. Srila Prabhupada came off the plane with his danda. First time we'd seen Srila Prabhupada with his sannyas rod, and hanging off his sannyas rod was a little saffron pouch. We thought how curious that was because we thought that the rod you held in front of you. But Srila Prabhupada had this rod over his shoulder, and the little pouch was on the end. At any rate, we brought him to the William Street apartment. So when Srila Prabhupada sat down in the front room, he had his suitcase opened. He had brought gifts for all the ladies. Every lady had a sari, and he had brought our temple the first gift of a coconut grater.
Thank you very much. So anyway, if anybody has anything spontaneous to say, then feel free to raise your hand. Otherwise, we're going to go to the next one. Let's go. What page is the next one?
This one is called Enjoying Chastisement from His Follower by Radha Govinda Swami. I was in Benares at that time when Srila Prabhupada was touring, traveling India with his 40 disciples. I read in a newspaper in America, Krishna Bhakti is preached. Naturally, I was a devotee of Krishna, so I liked this topic. So I went there. Then there was a procession from Dasashamedha Ghat to Tapan Mishra's house that is now in Benares. When the procession finished, I approached Srila Prabhupada and I spoke in Hindi. When you went to America and how you preach? Prabhupada said, you see, I just chant Hare Krishna and give some lecture. He said, they need this Vedic knowledge. So just see how they are happy and they are chanting. Then I asked, where is your program after Benares? Prabhupada said, I will go to Gorakhpur. So I wrote down that date. Then I went to Gorakhpur and Prabhupada was there. He was staying in Krishna Nikitan. I went there. I was waiting. Prabhupada was at that time alone, so I did not recognize that he is Prabhupada. Where is A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami? I asked Prabhupada. So Prabhupada asked me, why you want to meet with him? I replied, because he is my guru. I like him very much. So Prabhupada asked me, why you accept him as your guru? I said, because he is a servant of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Prabhupada asked me, who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? So I said, he is Krishna himself. So I was talking and Prabhupada asked, why you accept Lord Chaitanya as Krishna? Because I read it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Krishna himself came as a devotee to preach. Then Prabhupada said, no, he is not Krishna. He is devotee of Krishna. I said, no, he is Krishna himself. Prabhupada was laughing. His smile was non-stop. And when he told that he knows that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, he said, you chastise me. I like that. I am very happy with your words. So Prabhupada ki jai. So the next topic is gracefully accepting, and so how Prabhupada valued gifts and services from his disciples. Yeah. Would you like to read? This is page 31.
This is expressive Danavir Goswami. It wasn't too long after I joined the Govindam prayers that started to be played in the morning. The album had come from England, the Radha Krishna Temple album. Just one morning, it happened. It seemed quite spontaneous that the deity doors opened up and the Govindam prayers went on, and Prabhupada went through his small offering of dandavats in front of each altar. But when he went around and he sat on the Vyasasan, tears were coming down his face. He was so pleased by the Govindam prayers that he wasn't able to speak for some time. And that's following Srila Prabhupada transcript.
This is page 41.
So this excerpt is from April, May 1975. It's entitled Taking Time to Write a Thank You Letter. Ovasi Devi Dasi. I was serving at the Montreal Temple, Canada, and there were a lot of devotees going to India. And before we left, I went back home to Los Angeles, where my parents live, to give them a visit. As I was leaving there, my mother asked me out of the blue. She said, "Is there something I can give to you to take to your spiritual master?" I was really taken aback by that question, and I said, "Oh, that's so nice." I said, "I don't know. What would you like to give him?" She said, "I could make him some guava jam because we had fruit trees at the property." So I told her that would be really nice. So she made the guava jam and she wrote on there, "For Srila Prabhupada." When I was in Vrindavan, I went up to Srila Prabhupada's quarters and handed it through to one of his servants, and that was that. Then I found out for 2 days that Prabhupada's servant was looking for me. He had remembered what I looked like, but he didn't know my name. Finally, he found me, and he said that Srila Prabhupada really loved the jam, and he wanted my mother's name and address because Srila Prabhupada wanted to write her a thank you letter. There it was, all these devotees, huge event, the opening of the temple, the installation of the deities, and Srila Prabhupada was so concerned to write a thank you letter. So my parents received the letter from Srila Prabhupada, and he was thanking my mum so nicely for this guava jam. And he told her that it was his favorite jam, that his mother used to make guava jam for him. Then he went on to say that, do not worry about your daughter. I am taking care of her. She is nicely engaged in the Lord's service. It was just a really sweet letter. It's so amazing that Srila Prabhupada took that time to recognize that little gift from my mother amongst so much activity going on and so many devotees. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
The next theme is the power of his purity, how his very presence moved, touched, and inspired the devotees. So this is page 56. Maybe you can read it.
The humorous and loving father, Manjuali Dasi. The 1st of October 1972 was when I got married to Jayatirtha. So we had the wedding, and the Jayatirtha and I went in to see Srila Prabhupada in the garden. So I came in my pink sari, tied together as one is, straight off the fire sacrifice. We came in and we had the prasadam and everything. Prabhupada was giving all these lectures. I just remember about a beautiful wife is the enemy to the husband. Prabhupada had a wicked sense of humor, though. So I was bringing the plate in, and we had all the gopi dots on. Everything was in order, all beautiful attired. Prabhupada was sitting on his chair in the garden, and Prabhupada looked up and he said, "Oh, she is beautiful." And then he winked at me. And I thought, "Oh no, I'm already an enemy." I didn't say that. That's what I thought. Then Prabhupada said, come, sit down." So we brought him the plate of prasadam, and then he took the drink, and it was an almond drink. He took a sip of it, and I can still remember with his little finger up in the air, you know how Prabhupada did with his silver goblet. And then he looked down at the plate, and then he said, "And she can cook, and she can cook." Then he started to move his head from side to side like acha. But it was just the sense of humor Prabhupada had at that really important day in my life. It was just so warm and loving, and it was like he was my father. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
The next theme is how Prabhupada cared so much for the little details. Gopal, you can read. This is page 62. It's small.
Did he understand French? Dasi. The first time that translate Prabhupada's words was when he learned, no, when he lectured at the School of Architecture in Paris. Many young people attend. Prabhupada saw that I was not yet a very expert translator, so he spoke in short sentences. It was very nice of him. Over the years, I was able to translate better, and he would make his sentences much longer. Astonishing and astonishing. Once when I forgot to translate part of what Prabhupada had said, he noticed it. I don't know how he noticed, because I don't think Prabhupada knew French, but he noticed I missed a part. He repaired a part I missed so that I would translate it. And I did. The Prabhupada Connection website. Srila Prabhupada aquí. Ya.
This is on the same page, 63.
Okay. Srutadeva Dasa. So I was writing to the deities and offering to the deities, and Prabhupada came up and paid his obeisances to deities, and then walked back to his morning classes. I had always been training that you never leave these deities alone. So even though I wanted to go listen to Prabhupada, I felt as Pujari it was my duty to stay there. So I was staying there, and about 30 seconds later, Bhagavanda comes running back down to where I was, and I was and said, "Oh, you are here? Good." Prabhupada wanted to make sure someone was with the deities. So that really struck me that here everybody is chanting, "Ja Prabhupada, Ja Prabhupada." And he's going up, getting flower garlands, getting worshipped. But he was thinking, oh, he's somebody with Radha and Krishna. Following Srila Prabhupada transcript. Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada ki.
Read the translation. He who brought the treasure of divine love and who was filled with compassion and mercy, where has such a personality as Srinivasacharya gone? Where are my Swarup Damodar and Rupa Goswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where are my Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottam Das simply weeps. Okay. Yes. No, it's fine. Yayanilo Premadana Aruna Pracho Endo Prabhu Kotakena Acharya Thakur Kahamora Swarupa Kahasanata Kahata Saragunata Patita Pavan Kahamora Bhattayuga Kaha Kavira Eka Kaliko Takena Godanatara Asane Kutibomata Anale Pasibo Kutibomata Anale Pasibo Kodanga kunera niti kotagere pavo nera niti kotagere Tejava sangira sange Ekoi lovila Sanjira sange Sisangana paya kande Narutamota Yayanilo Premadana Koruna Pracho Aino Prabhu Kotakena Acharya Thakur Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Continuing our discussion on the points and qualities of Srila Prabhupada, this chapter is entitled Tolerant of Devotees' Weaknesses. He was protecting them from losing Krishna. So, Java Prabhu, you could read this past him.
I'll read from there. I think I can't read. I'll read from here. Who's speaking? Okay. Okay, Shruti Kirti is speaking. A former sannyasi got married and already had a child when he came to see Srila Prabhupada in Mexico City. I believe he was the first sannyasi to fall down, and he was afraid to see Srila Prabhupada. He offered his obeisances and mentioned how, in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Lord Chaitanya told Chota Haridas to leave his association after Chota Haridas had glanced at a woman. This former sannyasi asked, Srila Prabhupada, do I have to leave too? Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya could make the whole world Krishna conscious in a second, but I can't do that. I need all the help I can get. Do whatever service you can do in the household or ashram, just be content. It was incredible. A sannyasi falls down and Prabhupada said, now be a content grihasta, become peaceful and do service.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Next, page 68.
And do I have to read this part as well? Smile for a sleepy servant, Satyanandana Swami. I had put my alarm clock exactly on 7.5 minutes. All of a sudden, I was lying behind my desk. I heard the voice of Srila Prabhupada inquiring about the German translations. First, I thought it was a dream, a nightmare. Then, as I emerged to the ordinary wakeful consciousness, I actually became aware Prabhupada is standing in our room. A few days before, he had said that he was never like the servants in the Dalhousie Park who pretend to be busy, but in reality sleep, and now I was sleeping under the table. I was really sleeping only for 7.5 minutes, and it was necessary to concentrate after the heavy breakfast. But my spiritual master, who only comes once in a lifetime in my area of service, now has found out I'm sleeping. I felt so bad, but I calculated it will be even more bad when Prabhupada finds me lying under the table. So I better emerge. So I somehow, as gracefully as I possibly could, brought my body in the sitting position. At that moment, Prabhupada looked at me a little surprised because I came out like a soldier comes out under camouflage. Then he laughed into my face with eyes sparkling with energy and joy, and he seemed to communicate, it's all right, we all need sometimes a rest. I was very much pleased by that very human feature of Srila Prabhupada's smile.
Next, page 69.
Jagatarini Dasi. During Srila Prabhupada's lecture, one devotee asked a question, and his question was that if a devotee is initiated as a Brahmin and he leaves Krishna consciousness, then isn't it appropriate that if he wants to come back, that he should be reduced to the level of a Sudra? It was a very
theoretical kind of question. And Srila Prabhupada cut him off quite quickly and said, "It is not for you to judge who is guilty and who is innocent." Then he tried again, and he rephrased and represented his question. It may have been that he didn't think that Srila Prabhupada understood his question, but he tried again and to explain this point, that somebody who leaves should be put in a lower position and then work their way back up. Srila Prabhupada again cut him off, and then he commented afterwards that only the spiritual master knows who is actually guilty and who is innocent. And that really struck me quite deeply, that Srila Prabhupada was indicating that we can't see from the outside what are people's intentions and motives, so as to be able to judge them or degrade them for their offenses or their faults. Following Srila Prabhupada's transcript.
The next quality of Srila Prabhupada we'll focus on is Prabhupada as a true leader. He was humble and equal to all. So Matthias, you could read. This is page 71.
Where does it finish? Okay. You should pray to Krishna for me. Shivananda Das. I think that one of the most profound experiences I had with Srila Prabhupada took place in 1969 when I was serving him during his visit to Hamburg, West Germany. I was somehow chosen to take Srila Prabhupada on his morning walk, cook his lunch, and give him a massage each day. There weren't very many devotees in Hamburg at the time, so I somehow got the mercy. This incident took place on Ekadashi. I had given Srila Prabhupada his breakfast and taken away his plates. He then proceeded to cover his head with his chadar, sit in his chair by the window and chant. So naturally, I figured something was up, but didn't know what. Sometimes on Ekadashi, you don't quite know what to expect because it is a special day. As the morning progressed, I cooked his Ekadashi lunch and then got ready to give Srila Prabhupada his massage. Reflecting back, I probably didn't give Srila Prabhupada a very good massage, but at the time, I didn't really know what he needed. Anyway, he kindly accepted my service. I got out his oil and put down the mat he usually sat on, and then he came in and said to me, "You should pray to Krishna for me." Well, needless to say, I was quite taken aback. Here is my spiritual master, a great exalted Krishna-conscious personality, asking me to pray to Krishna for him. Well, I went through quite a few changes in a few seconds, and finally blurted out, "Well, I don't think that would work." "Why not? You are a devotee of Krishna," he replied. Well, I just left it at that and gave Srila Prabhupada his massage. It was wonderful and surprising that such a great personality as Srila Prabhupada could be so humble. This is one of the qualities of Srila Prabhupada that is very attractive to me and also very endearing. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
This pastime was told to me by Shivananda himself when he was with Srila Prabhupada in Hamburg. And they had gone for a walk in the evening, and it was quite cold, and Shivananda was like shivering a little bit, and it was obvious that he was uncomfortably cold. And when they got back to the flat, Srila Prabhupada went into the kitchen and made him a thing of hot halava, served him hot grains. He said, "This will warm you up." So Srila Prabhupada, it was his disciple, but he was making, hot halava for Shivananda.
Thank you. Next, we'll go page 72.
Ajamil Das. Here was Srila Prabhupada's position. He had practically conquered the world with Krishna consciousness. He had been all around and he came back here to Mayapur, and now he was establishing something really big. It was the opening of the Lotus building. And in those days, this was a big building. It was bigger than practically anything else around in Mayapur.
and there was no one more successful. It was clear now that he was more successful than any of his god brothers. It was clear that he was Krishna's representative, that he was the special Sankirtan general for the whole world. That day, Srila Prabhupada gave the class, and I clearly remember the first thing that he said in his lecture. Before he said anything, he said, "Actually, I am unfit to be your leader," and everyone was very quiet. And actually, he was quite choked up as well, and he said, "You are all spreading Krishna consciousness in the Western countries because of your previous connection with the Sankirtan movement, and Lord Chaitanya has put you there." Then he said, "And you're actually doing everything, and I'm not fit to be your leader." When he said that, I thought, now hang on, this is a level of humility that I cannot understand, because he really meant it. It was obvious that he was doing some really big things, but he was absolutely taking no credit for it, and he really meant it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said it. Actually, when I first heard that, I was bewildered. I couldn't understand what he was talking about. But as I've reflected upon that over the years, now I understand that he's actually completely humble. He has no sense of thinking that I am the doer. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
It's page 73.
Abhiram. This is Abhiram Das. There were a lot of events taking place that for us were very emotionally churning and disturbing. There were moments when we would feel that Prabhupada was going to recover, then he would start to take something and indicate that he would stay with us, and we would feel the greatest elation and the greatest joy. We felt like we had been dunked underwater in a dunking chair, and suddenly we were being brought up for a breath of air. And then just as extreme, and suddenly we would see a symptom that he was not perhaps recovering his health, and it was continuing to deteriorate, and then we would be plunged into the greatest, in the abyss of lamentation, and great fear and anxiety that he might leave us. So it was emotionally an extremely difficult time. I was present at the time when Krishna Das Babaji came to visit Srila Prabhupada and sat on his bed at his feet and massaged Srila Prabhupada's feet, and held his hand. And Srila Prabhupada asked him for forgiveness, saying, "Please forgive me for offenses that I committed to my god brothers, the Vaishnavas." He said, "What could I do? I had to preach strongly." And Krishna Das Babaji, of course, rubbed his hand, rubbed his arm, and said, "There is no offense, Swamiji. There is no offense from you." I think he said, "Please be at peace." Prabhupada actually cried for that forgiveness.
Same page, the next one, it's the trees.
This is Juhu. Even the trees mattered to Srila Prabhupada, Giriraj Swami. Srila Prabhupada had to struggle very hard to build the Juhu temple. The first struggle was to get the land. The next struggle was to get the permission to build the temple. And the last struggle was to actually build the temple and install the deities. And we had worked very hard to get the permission. But Indian permits often include many conditions. So although they gave permission, the permission is not actually valid until one fulfills the conditions. One of the conditions was that we had to have an internal access road of a certain width according to the length of the road. And it just so happened that right where the access road was supposed to go, there were some palm trees. Once, when Srila Prabhupada came to Juhu after being away for some time, he noticed that one or two of the trees had been cut, and he was very concerned. I would say upset, and he asked, "Why did you cut down the trees?" We thought we had the perfect answer. We had to build a temple, and to get a permission for the temple, we had to cut the trees in the way of the road. Srila Prabhupada said, "No, you go to the municipality and tell them it's against our religion to cut down trees." So we had no choice, and we did it. And of course, the municipal officers argued. But one thing that really struck me about how concerned Srila Prabhupada was for the trees was that the next time he came back to Juhu after a world tour, practically the first thing he said was, I was in Tehran and I have seen they have trees in the middle of the streets, so we can also have trees in the middle of our street. In other words, it was not so strange. So on Srila Prabhupada's order, we held our ground with the municipality, and in the end, they gave us the permission to keep the tree. And even today, we can see that tree that Srila Prabhupada protected still standing there with asphalt all around it. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Page 74. Where do we go? Kind even to the monkeys.
Kind even to the monkeys. This is from Guru Das. One day, a little baby monkey fell through the bars of Radha Damodar Temple's upstairs room, where Srila Prabhupada was living. Screaming from the separation from her baby, the mother monkey was trying to get through the steel bars. Very carefully, Prabhupada picked up the little monkey and with his lotus palms, gave the baby back to the thankful mother. After that incident, the mother came to the window every day looking for Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yeah, these memories are not in any sort of chronological order, so it's sometimes a little bit confusing, but we get a nice sense of Prabhupada. Yeah, page 75. Prajumna Prabhu, could you read? Yeah.
July 1972 to July 1973. Never betray their trust. This is Hridayananda Goswami. One time, Prabhupada was sitting taking massage, and then right in front of Prabhupada, these two little kittens were wrestling. They actually rolled right onto Prabhupada's lap. So among the various zealous misconceptions that plagued us in the early days, one that we had is that animals were so contaminated that it's horrible to even touch them. I was appalled that these two kittens, they were cute, but they just rolled right onto Prabhupada's lap, and I was thinking, oh my God, an animal touched Prabhupada. But to my surprise, Prabhupada just started petting them, and Prabhupada said two things. He said, look, even here there is love. What I immediately understood from that was that our original love for Krishna is so strong that even in the body of an animal or a cat, it still manifests in some way. Then Prabhupada said, if I put my head in your lap and you cut my throat, that is the greatest sin. He said the greatest sin is if someone trusts you and takes shelter of you, and then you betray them and cause them harm. It can be parents toward the child. It can be a man protecting a woman. Any situation where someone has sincerely trusted us and depends on us, then we betray them. This is following Srila Prabhupada's transcript. Srila Prabhupada ki.
The same page, actually, 76. You could read this one.
This is from July 1972 to July 1973. Nobody should go hungry within a 10-mile radius. Jaya Pataka Swami. One day was Govardhan Puja, and we built a big mountain of rice and we fed many people. The people took their leaf plates after taking prasadam, and then they threw them behind the building. Then Prabhupada was living on the second floor, and we were sitting in the room together. Then he heard dogs barking and kids shouting. So then he got up and walked back on the veranda behind his room. Then he looked over and he saw that there was this big pile of leaf plates of people that had eaten their meal, and there were little scraps on the plates. So then there were some very poor children with sticks in their hand, fighting off some very hungry dogs, trying to get the scraps of food that people haven't finished eating on their plate. When Prabhupada saw how these children were so hungry that they had to eat the things that people threw away, and how they were fighting with the dogs to get these scraps of food, Tears swelled in his eyes and he said, "We have to see that nobody goes hungry within a 10-mile radius. The temple is a house of God. God is everyone's father. Krishna is everyone's father. So in the presence of the Father, the Son doesn't go hungry. So we have to make an arrangement that people get fed." And so this was the inspiration for regular prasadam distribution. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
The next quality of Srila Prabhupada is how much he was a perfect gentleman. He always knew how to care for the guests and what to say for them. So this is one memory shared by Moksha Lakshmi Dashi on page 80. And here she says, "Another time, on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day, we cooked 108 preparations for the deities, Radha Rasa Bihari. In those days in Bombay, we cooked feasts on all the appearance and disappearance days. We cooked a lot. Hamza Dutta told us, 'Oh, you should show the feast to Prabhupada.' So Sarva Mangala and I got a big pot lids, put all the preparations on them, and carried them across to Hare Krishna land, up the stairs and into Prabhupada's room. Later, Prabhupada sent us a message. This movement is nothing without its feasts. Srila Prabhupada ki." Prabhu, you could read, this is on page 82. From here, yeah, just over the page.
March 1974, July 1974, touching a woman reporter's heart. Bhargavadasa. Two French reporters came to visit Prabhupada. One was an older man and one was a woman probably in her early 30s. Prabhupada didn't tell pastime stories. Mostly he preached about "you're not that body," a lot of philosophical things, but he didn't generally tell so many stories. This woman was sitting there and he starts telling her story about how this demon kidnapped 16,000 princes and Krishna finally came and killed the demon. And the princesses approached Krishna because they were really attracted to Krishna, and Krishna looked at them and he said, "Come on." And that's how Krishna ended up with 16,000 wives. So as I'm listening to the story, I'm thinking, this is pretty incredible story to tell a reporter, especially in the Western culture, where everything is so rationalistic. But he told that story, and when he quoted Krishna as saying, "Come on," that reporter's face lit up as only a woman who had some experience in the world of heartbreak could understand. And even though the number of wives may have sounded so incredible, that affection he had towards those princesses touched that woman's heart, and she just lit up. It was beyond the rational. It was just on the level of an appreciation of the loving heart of Krishna by this very intelligent, very sophisticated French reporter, and it was a very wonderful moment. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Okay, the next quality of Srila Prabhupada is how he gave Krishna to everybody, focusing on his universal but intimate love. So this is page 85. Javit, you could read.
Who's speaking? Okay, that one, yeah. I am like a cow. I can give milk anywhere. Gurudas. There were many engagements, and Prabhupada would just have a set up anything for him to speak. It didn't matter if it was small or large or in a seedy part of town. And when he spoke about Krishna and sang the holy names, he was happy and he would get energy. Sometimes we would even say, well, Prabhupada, we went to this place before and 2 people showed up and we don't know if it's worth your time to go there. And Prabhupada would say, no, I am like a cow. I give milk anywhere. That is what I like to do. And we would just go with him, this place, this town, that town. We just like to be with him. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Caring for the neighborhood. Jinadayadri Dasi. The morning walks were very informal. Pretty much whoever wanted to go could go. And a lot of times the devotees were so sick, most of them were under their mosquito nets when Prabhupada took his morning walk. So I remember one morning Prabhupada was just talking off for his walk, and so Brahmananda, Naranarayan, myself, and Srimati trailed along after him. We came to the gates. Remember those big wooden gates at the front of the property? And they were closed. And this was after Mangalarti. Prabhupada became livid. He was so angry, he said, why are these gates closed? I've told you the gates must be kept open for Mangalarti so the villagers can come. He said, do you think this Mangalarti is just for you? No, it's for everyone. You think this Krishna consciousness is just for you? He was very angry that we were being so self-centered and not thinking about the welfare of the neighborhood people. Srila Prabhupada ki.
So the next quality of Srila Prabhupada we'll focus on is how selfless he was. His own needs, age, health, or illness did not matter in the spreading of Krishna consciousness. This is page 90. If you could read this one here.
May to July 1975. Even when he was ill, Rajitambara Dasi. One time, Rameshwar Prabhu called us all into the temple room for an emergency Ishtagosti one evening and told us that Srila Prabhupada was in Hawaii, but he was very, very ill, and he was coming to Los Angeles that night. But no one should go to the airport and greet him. We should be very quiet around the temple, and no one should try to ask for darshans or anything like that. Prabhupada was ill, and he was coming to rest. We wouldn't see him at all. So at the end, he asked for questions. My only service to Srila Prabhupada, a direct service, was to make these cookies that he gave out to the children. So I raised my hand and asked, should I make the cookies? And he immediately said, cookies? I've just been telling everybody that Srila Prabhupada is so ill. You think Prabhupada is going to give cookies to the children? And I felt so bad. So then I went home and I was crying like anything, telling my husband, but it's my only service to Srila Prabhupada. And I guess to pacify me, he said, never mind, service is absolute. So you go ahead and make the cookies and bring them over just as you usually do. Bring them to Guru Puja, and later you could offer them to a picture of Srila Prabhupada and distribute them in the playground to the children. So that pacified me. And the next morning, I got up early and I very carefully made the cookies and I set them out on the beautiful silver plate. And I brought them over and tucked them behind the Vyasasan. Nobody expected Srila Prabhupada to show up for Guru Puja. We knew that he had arrived in the night, but we knew he was very ill. And just before the curtains were to open, suddenly the door to Srila Prabhupada's quarters opened, and there was Srila Prabhupada looking so ill, and he was being held up by two people. The curtains opened, and they laid him down to pay full dandavats in front of Shri Gaurnitai. Then they had to pick him up again. He was so weak, and they helped him again in front of Rukmini Dwarkadish and laid him down again, up and again in front of Lord Jagannath. And by that time, they were back at his door to go back to his quarters. And Srila Prabhupada said, no, there should be Guru Puja. So they helped him onto his Vyasasan, and so we had a very short Guru Puja. Then they climbed up to help him down, and Srila Prabhupada said, no, there should be class. So then Srila Prabhupada gave class, and I remember that even though he was speaking into the microphone, you could hardly hear him because he was so weak, and he was sitting with his head all fallen forward. He was so weak. So then again, after a short class, they went to help him down again, and Srila Prabhupada said very audibly into the microphone, no, where are the cookies? The children are waiting for their cookies. And I said, oh, I've got the cookies. And I ran and brought the cookies. I was so happy. Srila Prabhupada remembered the children. He was so ill, but he had that heart for the children. And ill as he was, he waited till every last child he had given, he waited till every last child he had given each one personally a cookie, and then he broke up the rest. By that time, there was a huge kirtan, and he threw the rest of the cookies out into the crowd of all the dancing brahmacharis, and everybody just went wild. Following Srila Prabhupada's transcript. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
The final quality we'll look at with Srila Prabhupada is how he personally took care of the physical needs of his disciples. This is page 94. You can read this one here.
Even pimple cream. When I was 18, I was getting acne, and Srila Prabhupada asked me, what is on your face? I said, they're pimples, Prabhupada. He said, you should put a little tilak on them. So I put tilak spots on my face, but I was too embarrassed to walk on the streets with white dots on my face. The next time he saw me, he asked me about my pimples again, and why wasn't I using the tilak? I said, I can't walk around just like that. It's just too... He said, take a little olive oil and boric acid and heat them in a spoon over the fire. Put that ointment on. Sure enough, the combination produced a salve that looked just like any ointment. That was his personal caring side. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Raghunath Prabhu, there's plenty more we can do, but that's all I've highlighted. I'll read out another pastime, and just there's so many in here. So this is one in 1974 in Bombay, and this is Ekanath Das. Once upon a time in Bombay, I paid a visit to Srila Prabhupada's quarters during darshan hours. After entering the room, I immediately paid my obeisances and then automatically made eye contact with His Divine Grace. He stopped talking and looked at me and said, "Why are you so skinny?" Somewhat taken aback, I said that I didn't know why. He bounced right back, saying, "You should eat more." I replied that I would. I mean, what else could I say? Then he gestured that I should come over and sit right beside him next to the table, where a straw mat was laying on the floor unused. I complied with his request. After I took my place, he continued on with the discussion he was conducting with the few devotees present. Then he was served a glass of fresh sugarcane juice in a silver cup, and he immediately proceeded to pour some of it into his mouth. While holding that cup, with a grin on his face, he said confidently that this juice is excellent for one's health and gives one good strength. The devotees were all soon dismissed, which brought the darshan to an end. I went off looking for something to eat. Srila Prabhupada ki.
Disciple who went to Scotland from the very early days when they tried to open the temple there, starting from Dundee and then in Edinburgh. So he's just speaking here about Srila Prabhupada's visit to Scotland. So,
No matter what, I was a nonsense that up until feeling loved. I really felt that I'd commit to my life. I felt loved. No matter what, I was a nonsense, but you're loved, and I want you here. Yeah. The year's 1972, and we were in a hall in Glasgow, in Scotland, which is where I was born. The place I left when I was 17 because it was so heavy, it was rough, it was violent. I'm sure it had other qualities as well, of course, but as a little child, adolescent, early teenage kid, I wanted to get away from that place. I didn't enjoy my life in Glasgow as a child. Shortly after becoming a devotee and joining the Hare Krishna movement, Prabhupada's mission, we managed to organize a program for Prabhupada to speak at. He came very briefly to Scotland for 2 days. He came to Edinburgh, spent the night in Edinburgh, and the next day, and then in the afternoon, he came over to Glasgow. We'd hired a big hall, and it was pretty full. It was a good turnout. We'd hired the hall in Mary Hill in Glasgow, which is well known as one of the roughest parts of what was then a very rough city. The reason we'd hired the hall there was, though, is there was a big Asian community in that part of Glasgow, and also there was a university. So we thought that could bring a big audience, hopefully a big audience of students, youngsters, and also Asians, Indian-bodied audience. And we were right. It was a good turnout. And a couple of things happened which I'll never forget. Apart from the fact that Prabhupada gave a very solid talk on Bhagavad Gita. He spoke about fighting, he spoke about warfare, and he spoke about duty. I had my apprehensions. I thought, people here have had enough of all that. Maybe he could be speaking more flowery, more like the peace and love Swami, the sweetness and light. But no, Prabhupada gave a very forceful lecture, which was very well received, contrary to what I was thinking. It was very well received, and the audience were applauding heartily, and it came to questions and answers. Prabhupada answered a few. There were a few questions and answers, and what I remember is that then came this hippie character, long-haired, with a bearded, and he didn't sound very happy at all. And he was raving away from the back of the hall, shouting, whatever, we couldn't really understand. And Prabhupada looked to his servant, or his assistant, whoever he was, and he said, I cannot hear. Can you ask him to come forward? So whoever it was, Ribhadanandan Swami, I think, possibly, invited this person to come down to the front so that he could express himself and what he wanted to say to Prabhupada. So he came all the way from the back of the hall, all the time, just ranting and shouting, you're not God, or we're all God, or I'm God. Why should I surrender to someone if I'm already God? Or whatever it was, whether he was stoned or drunk, or it was just the way he wasn't very happy. And he was right down below the stage, continuing to give off all this tirade and stuff. And Prabhupada just sat there listening, quietly. And eventually he finished. And Prabhupada said, so, you're finished now? And he looked at Prabhupada and said, yes. And so there was silence. And then Prabhupada said into the microphone, pretty quietly, but everyone could hear, he said, you are not God, you are dog. And everyone began to cheer and applaud. It was relief, almost like Prabhupada had switched a relief valve. There was tension, and now there was relief. But that wasn't all. Prabhupada kindly engaged with him in some exchange. He then went on to ask him, do you know what is God? And the guy said, I think so, sometimes. He said, yes. He said, God, Prabhupada said, God means controller. Are you controller? And he looked at Prabhupada and said, well, sometimes. And Prabhupada said, yes, sometimes. In the office, you are controller. At home, you are controlled. But God is always controller. When you come across that person who is in absolute control, that is God. So he gave this person some time and some understanding. Then he just turned around and walked all the way back to the back of the hall. He seemed satisfied, and the audience was applauding. So whether he felt embarrassed or whether, well, I've had said my piece and I've had my response, it was the way Prabhupada handled that, though, that I thought was just incredible. First of all, he said, you're not God, you're dog. So that could have been just a dismissal. But then Prabhupada explained to him what God meant. At that same venue, when the questions and answers were over, Prabhupada said, Kirtan, the devotees led by Ribhadananda had a big kirtan on the stage. And so everyone was dancing, chanting, and they opened all the doors to the hall. So in from the streets came a lot of these little street kids, because remember, we're in a real rough part of Glasgow. And so some real rough little kids, raggedy clothes and looking to cause some trouble, came in to find out what was going on in this place after the doors opened. And some of them made their way down to the stage, and some of them began to chant like this, making some fun, having a laugh, with the weird Hare Krishnas like this. And so some of the devotees, myself included, thought it would be best to get these guys off the stage. They're being offensive or something. We can't have these kids on this stage. They don't know what this is all about. So Rabadana, again, I was behind Prabhupada. Somehow I was because I just liked being as close to Prabhupada as I could get, which wasn't very often. So I was so Rabbadananda, he came up to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, should we get these children off the stage? Prabhupada said, no, let them dance. They are devotees. And again, my heart went into my mouth because I thought, it's the way he said it. I thought, Prabhupada sees devotees. And we see a bunch of kids we want to kick off the stage and get them back out the door where they came from. Prabhupada saw devotees. I felt that. I didn't understand it, but I thought, that's how he sees. They're devotees. And he was quite firm. No, he said, let them dance. They are devotees. So I felt happy that I'd brought Prabhupada to this place that I'd left also. I was quite proud and honored. I felt I was giving something back to that town of my birth. Giving something back. Here's a pure devotee of Krishna. In return for what I got from you, you have a pure devotee of Krishna and get his mercy. So Prabhupada was very well received that day. It was very successful. Prabhupada was so happy. I think we only had little bits of oranges to give out as we had no money really. We were very poor, so no one had certainly been able to come up with any feast. So we gave out slices of orange to everyone as prasadam, and Prabhupada was giving it out by hand to people also. And I can remember when he left the stage to leave, he rubbed Tribhuvanath's head. It was Tribhuvanath Prabhu who had organized all this. He rubbed him on the head and said, "Thank you very much for this." So he enjoyed that. And he told me later in a letter, he said that, I liked that place, Scotland, very much. And presently we're looking for a new temple, which became Bhaktivedanta Manor. We hadn't. And hopefully when I come back to England, then I will be able to come back to Scotland again. He said, but I could not bear the cold, even in August. When Prabhupada came to Edinburgh, he gave a welcome address. He swept up the stairs into the temple room, onto his Vyasasan, and there were a lot of people had arrived to find out who is this leader of this still new Hare Krishna movement, certainly new in Scotland. The people of Scotland were quite aghast and shocked by this new movement. They couldn't figure it out. They couldn't quite make out. It's a very Presbyterian and religious country with a lot of Christian history behind it. At the same time, there were a lot of different Eastern groups springing up. Transcendental Meditation, the Guru Maharaj Ji. Now, the Guru Maharaj Ji, the Divine Light Mission, had their ashram across the road. And they had a big poster of their guru, the Guru Maharaj Ji, staring at us just across the street. It was funny, kind of a little competition going on there. But I noticed that a lot of their followers had come across the road to hear Prabhupada speak. And I also noticed that most of them brought something to offer, a piece of fruit or pints of milk or just something to put next to the altar out of respect. So Prabhupada spoke, and then at the end of his address said, "Are there any questions?" And one of the premies, I think they're called, the followers of the Guru Maharaj, he put his hand up and he said, "Swami, why must God be philosophy?" And Prabhupada looked straight back at him and said, very quietly, "Krishna is God, and God is great. Philosophy means to know how God is great. And that's all. He said it slowly, clearly, and the person who asked the question, he was happy, he played his pranams and sat down again. But I felt it was like a thunderbolt, and yet very quiet and clear. Because their philosophy is that if you do something, you go into the light, some mechanical way of just disappearing into some light, becoming one. So he wanted to know, why must God be philosophy? It was a little bit aggressive, but Prabhupada silenced him, and he was happy. One other time in Edinburgh, again, Prabhupada was just preparing to leave for Glasgow, for his talk in Glasgow. But I think it was Shyam Sundar Prabhu had organized a little press conference. So there were a few journalists that arrived to interview Prabhupada. Not very many, maybe 5 or 6. And it seemed to me that they weren't all that interested, as though these journalists had been, they'd drawn the short straw of their newspaper, had just sent them along to this temple to interview the Swami, their leader, whoever he was. It doesn't look as though they were all that interested, but they came with their notebooks and pens and pencils and all that, and they sat around this little makeshift table that we'd put together, hastily. And Prabhupada sat at the top of the table, and these journalists all sat looking at Prabhupada and looking at each other, and they didn't seem to know what to say. So it was very silent for a press conference. They asked questions about, what's this on your forehead, and so on and so forth. In fact, one of them asked a question that Prabhupada said, what newspaper are you from? And he said, from the Observer. And Prabhupada said, so why haven't you observed? Why don't you know these things? In response to the obvious questions, the shaved heads, the tilak, that was his. So Prabhupada started making the conversation rather than the journalists using the time to find out about this. Prabhupada said, so this Edinburgh is called Festival City. Every year, thousands of tourists. Yes, yes, Swami. And you have 2 universities, not only one, but 2 universities. A very prestigious city you have. Yes, yes. And so he's got them, softening them up, sweetening them up almost. But they were still not engaging. So then Prabhupada dropped a bombshell. He said, so why your children are all becoming hippies and taking LSD? And this was like a bombshell because they didn't know what to say to this comment. And the last thing they were expecting from this peaceful guru type Swami figure. And 1 or 2 of them got up and left. They were affronted. They felt, oh, how can you speak like this? And the press conference didn't last all that much longer. There were a few small inquiries, questions, as though that was what they were meant to be doing, but they didn't show enough interest. And they were from the lower end of the newspaper world, the tabloid, the Sun, the Mirror, the Daily Record, not the broadsheets or the higher class paper. So yeah. So it shocked me when he said that about the children. Why are children becoming hippies and taking LSD? You've got such a nice city here, everything, 2 universities, all these tourists. He also commented that these people, they're very proud of their buildings. The people of Edinburgh. From a morning walk, he came back from a morning walk, because it is a very beautiful city. If you've been to Edinburgh, it's very beautiful, beautiful Georgian and buildings and so forth. I was always astonished at how relaxed Prabhupada seemed, no matter where he was. I can remember him even lecturing in a big hall, again in London, and he was relaxed. wherever he was, one of my major experience of Srila Prabhupada was that he was unfazed, relaxed, absolutely knew that Krishna was guiding him at every moment.
His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we'll do now Gurvastakam followed by Kirtan. I'd like to Javat Vatsa to lead us. Jai.
So this melody is usually called the evening melody, but so it's like it's in a different raga to the morning melody. But although it's not evening, but because it's Srila Prabhupada's disappearance day, then it's appropriate that we sing this melody because it's more like it's more of a lamentation melody. Samsara dava nalalina loka Chanaya karunya gana ganatam Samsara dava nalalina loka Chanaya karunya gana ganatvam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu ki Tananritya Gita Vaditramadyan Manasoda Sena Mahaprabhu ki Tananritya Gita Vajitramadyan Manasoda Sena Romanchakampa Shrutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam Romanchakampa Shrutaranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam Shri Vigrahara Jananityanana Sringara Tanmandira Majanado Shri Vigrahara Jananityanana Sringara Tanmandira Majanado Yuktasya Bhaktam Shaniyanja Topi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam Yuktasya Bhaktam Shaniyanja Topi Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam Chatur Vidha Shri Bhagavat Prasadam Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturveda Sri Bhagavat Prasadam Swadhana Triptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Kritvaiva Triptin Bhajato Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam Kritvaiva Triptin Bhajato Sadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vindam Shri Radhika Madhavayoda Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupanam Shri Radhika Madhavayoda Para Madhurya Lila Guna Rupanam
Pratikshana Dhanalolopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Pratikshana Dhanalolopasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai Yaya Libir Yuktir Pekshaniya. Nikunja Yuno Ratikeli Siddhyai Yaya Libir Yuktir Pekshaniya. Tatrati Dakshya Dativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Tatrati Dakshya Dativalabhasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Sakshadaritve Nasamasta Shastre Oktastata Bhavyata Eva Sadhi. Sakshadaritve Nasamasta Shastre Ruktasthata Bhavyata Eva Sadhi. Kintu Prabhoya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Kintu Prabhoya Priya Eva Tasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kotopi. Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado Yasya Prasada Nagati Kotopi. Jayam Subham Stasya Yashasri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Jayam Subham Stasya Yashasri Sandhyam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. Sansara Dava Nalalita Loka Janaya Karunya Ganaganatvam. Praptasya kalyana gunanavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadara Shivachari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Jaya Satinandana, Gaura Hari, Jaya Satinandana, Gaura Hari. Jaya Kodanitai, Jaya Maya Bhosati, 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 Jaya Chichotina, Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Jaya Chichotina, Jaya Giridhari La, 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 Giridhari La. Jaya Giridhari La, Jaya Giridhari La. Jaya Vrindadevi, Jaya Vrindadevi. Jaya Vrindadevi, Jaya Vrindadevi. Jaya Nrsimhare, Jaya Nrsimhare. 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 Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Srila Prabhupada's Tirabhav Mahamahotsava ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Sritara Shri Srimad Shri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada ki. ISKCON BBT founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacharya Sritara Shri Srimad Shri Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki. Shri Guru Parambara ki, Ananda Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai, Shri Rupa Shri Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Das Raghunath Shri Shaikha Swami Prabhu ki jai, Prams Goho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shyamakunda Radhakunda Shri Giri Govardhana ki jai. Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham ki jai, Shri Mayapur Navadip Dham ki jai, Shri Nauchal Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai, Tvoka Ayodhya Dham ki jai, Shri Karuna Bhavan Dham ki jai, Gangamai Jamunamai ki jai, Bhakti Devi Tulsi Marani ki jai, Yukadam Harinam Sankirtan ki jai, Srila Prabhupada's Transcendental Book Distribution ki, Transcendental Prasadam Distribution ki, Shri Shri Kodanitai Maipur Shashi ki, Shri Tulsinath Maharaj ki, Shri Giridhari Lal ki, Shri Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki, Shri Mati Vrinda Devi ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the Son devotees. All glories to the Son devotees. All glories to the Son devotees. All glories to the Lord.
Hare Krishna. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. So I hope you all feel, now that you know Srila Prabhupada a little bit better and feel a little bit closer to him. And as Srila Prabhupada said, that this movement is nothing without the feasts. So I'd like to invite you now for a feast cooking in the special honor of Srila Prabhupada. And this is not the last feast this week. There's going to be another one in a couple of days of time. So leave some space as well for another feast. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitai Gaura Premanande.